Hello students. So today we will talk about democracy and human rights. Mainly this is for class 7 students and these are the various subtopics that will be covered. We will be covering democracy, dictatorship, monarchy, various features of democracy, what are the benefits of democracy. Next we will talk about various rights, human rights, child rights, rights of women, National Human Rights Commission as well. Okay, so let us start. So, first, democracy. You see, the democracy, this word comes from two Greek words which mean people's power. The true essence of democracy is rule of the people or their representatives. In democracy, you see, all citizens of the country enjoy the right to vote, which is also known as universal adult franchise. It is based on the principle of one person, one vote, and each vote has equal value. These are important facts, students. See this photograph over here. So, in this picture, you can see hands of various people. See, so this means this democracy here, this is being represented by various peoples together. They have their hand. Now, directly or indirectly, they will be trying to govern themselves. You see, when people directly participate in the governance, it is known as direct democracy, and when people elect their representatives who take decisions on their behalf, it is called indirect democracy. In India, what do you think we have? Do you go to parliament or any other place to make laws or implement them? No, we don't do that. We elect our representatives who do that. So in India we have indirect democracy. Now, you see, there are mainly three forms of government. Let us first talk about dictatorship. In this form of government, you see, a person who has not been elected by the people but has obtained power forcibly is a dictatorial government. This is important. This is very different. See the picture from the here. Here, this person is the dictator. Okay, and everybody is saluting him or they have to follow his absolute rule. So the dictator has absolute powers with no constitutional limitations, and in a military dictatorship the army is in full control. You must also remember that in a dictatorship only the party of the dictator is allowed to exist. In this system the citizens cannot raise any questions. See there, these are the various citizens. Do you think they are free? Look at their hands, as if they were bowing and saluting the person, though this means that they cannot raise any question about the dictator's government or its method of functioning. So in this way, a citizen is not the master of his fate and is always at the mercy of the dictator. Can you give us some examples? You see, one over here, Adolf Hitler. There are others as well. Say for example, Saddam Hussein of Iraq. Okay, he was also a dictator. So a dictator is a ruler who has absolute power over a country, and the power has been gained by force. This is important. Okay, let us now talk about monarchy. You see, the word monarchy has been derived from the Greek word monarchia, which means the rule of the one. Here you see, a king or a queen is the head of the state and the ruling position is generally passed on to the ruler's heirs. The monarch enjoys absolute powers in traditional monarchies, whereas, so you see, there are two types of monarchy. One is traditional, another is constitutional monarchy. In the case of constitutional monarchy, the government restricts the power of the monarch. You see, for example, there is constitutional monarchy in the United Kingdom. See, for example, let me show you this picture. See, they are the monarchs sitting over here, and everybody here is attending, and this is a sort of constitutional monarchy similar to our parliament. Okay, so what I am saying is that in monarchy, the head of the royal family is the head of the nation. And remember, the monarch or the queen is succeeded by his or her closest relative, which is mostly the eldest son. So in this system, the monarch takes decisions and runs the government with the help of small group of ministers. See, for example, over here. Another very important point is that the kings or the queens do not have to explain their actions. Neither they have to defend their decisions in front of anybody. Can you give me examples of such monarchy? You see, one I have just mentioned over here, United Kingdom. There are others as well. For example, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan. In that there we have another monarchical form of government, which is very different from our India, where we have democracy. So with this, now let us move forward to democracy. As we all know, we have indirect democracy in India, and here all adults vote and elect the leader who runs the country. Now direct democracies are not possible now, so most of the countries follow elected representative system, which is the indirect democracy in the world. Now, so we have talked about three forms of government. So now, before I proceed, let me quickly talk about the differences between democratic government and non-democratic government. Here in this column I have mentioned this. So in a democratic government, government is formed by the representatives elected by the people, whereas power is passed on hereditarily or is being captured in non-democratic government. Another is there is freedom of speech and rights of the people are legally ensured. This we will talk about in a few minutes. But here, in the case of non-democratic government, where we have either monarchy or dictatorship, the freedom of speech and rights of the people are limited. Also, rulers are subject to law. Our prime minister, as well as various ministers, chief ministers, council of ministers, they cannot do anything that they want. They are subject to law. However, in this non-democratic government case, the ruler is superior to law, above the law, because the law itself is being decided by him. See the differences? Okay, now we will move forward to discuss the various key features of democracy. There are in fact 6 very important features of democracy. First is rule of the law, next universal adult franchise, then participation of people, protection of human rights, equality and justice, and separation of power. So let's first talk about the rule of the law. You see, all people are equal in the eyes of the law. All are equal. See, for example, if this is a sort of law, it cannot distinguish. It is unable to see, and everything is being treated equally, be it the president or any ordinary citizen. And everyone has to abide by the laws. And how do we get the laws? These laws are laid down by the constitution of the country. So, from the president of the country to a peon in a small office, every citizen is subjected to the same laws, and all citizens are equally protected by the laws of the country. Next, we will talk about universal adult franchise. So, when the right to vote or franchise is given to every adult, it is called universal adult franchise. Well, you must also understand the meaning of this word franchise. Basically, it's a French word which means the right to vote. Now, the basic idea behind the universal adult franchise is based on political equality. It not only establishes a true democratic government, but also makes the government responsible for all its citizens. Earlier, the voting right in India was given to citizens who were above 21 years of age. But after the 61st Amendment Act of 1989, all people above 18 enjoy the right to vote. Now, right to vote is a very big weapon in the hands of the people. See, these are all weapons. This signifies that this person has participated in the voting process, which is known as election. I will soon make another video on this election. You see, so in a way, this is the very important weapon in the hands of the people. And as it is said that in democracy we do not need bullets but ballots to change the government. You must also, it is very unique to know that in the earliest democracies of the world, only men who had a certain amount of property and education were allowed to vote by the governments. The women, the poor and uneducated persons were not allowed to vote. But now this is not so in our present country and situation. Remember that no government can claim itself to be a democratic government without allowing all eligible adults to vote. Let me show you some photographs. See here, people are standing in a line. This is the one queue for ladies. This is another queue for men over here. They are all holding their voter card with them so that they can participate in the voting process. And this is how the process takes place. We will talk about it in the election video. See, the person is being marked with the ink, and after this is how the fingers look like, which means that each of them has participated in the voting process. Okay, so now let me talk about another feature of our democracy, which is the participation of people. You see, the participation of the people in the functioning of democracy is very important. People should exercise their right to vote and actively take interest in the formation of the government. Their duty does not end here just after elections. You see, even after the elections, they should keep themselves informed about the policies of the government. So, these people, they have voted to one government. Okay, so after this, a government is formed. Now, they must observe the various policies, what rules this government has made, so that they can later on decide if the government is doing the good job or not. And if the government is not doing a good job, then after another election, they will choose yet another party to form a government. And this way, it is the people who are deciding how they will be governed, how they will help themselves. Okay, whether the country should be prosperous or not, it is the people who will decide. Okay, they should formulate public opinion if they feel policies are not fair and criticize them through media, hartal and social networking sites. If they still remain unsatisfied, they should never take the law in their hands and use their democratic power of voting to pull down such a government in the next election. Okay. Now, I think before I proceed, let me a little bit talk more about the elections in general, because this is very much related to these two features, the participation of people and universal adult franchise. So you see, regular elections are an essential feature of a democracy that I have repeatedly told you. The Election Commission of India, you see, is an autonomous constitutional authority which conducts these elections, and the elections are held at periodic intervals. In India, the elections are held after every 5 years. For elections, a state is divided into small divisions known as electoral constituencies. You will be learning about this in my upcoming video, but I am just telling you because this is related to this very particular topic. Okay, now people elect one leader or representative from each constituency. The official list that contains the name of all the qualified voters or people in a district who are entitled to vote is known as electoral roll or the voters list. Through voting in elections, people elect leaders to represent them, and these representatives later form the government, who take decisions on behalf of the entire population. Now, if the government wants to continue to be in power, then its members have to be re elected by the people. Again, at the time of re election, people can feel their power in a democracy. Say, for example, if people are not satisfied with the working of the government, they may not vote for it and make it lose. Thus, regular elections restrict the power of the government and increase people's participation in democracy. Okay, now let's move forward to talk about human rights before proceeding with other features of democracy. So, till now we have talked about three features of democracy: rule of law, universal adult franchise, then we have talked about elections, participation of people. Okay, now let's talk about human right. You see, government take necessary steps for the protection of rights. For this, every country incorporates a list of rights in their constitution, and this list is known as the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights in India is known by the name Fundamental Rights. Say, for example, see the pollution of Periyar, people worried. Some of the captions: December 10, all set to observe Human Rights Day. Labor exploitation high in unorganized sector in India. Serious health problems in children in the fireworks factories in some place, Sivakasi. So there are some of the headlines in media. We will talk about it. Now, before proceeding forward, let me talk about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This states that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. Okay. Now, let me talk about some of the rights. First is your right to live. This we will talk about in details as well, but I am just telling you briefly. Right to freedom, right to freedom of association, right to occupation, right to preserve culture, language and script. Now, the first one, right to live, means the right to live with dignity. Pure air, drinking water, sufficient nutritious food come under the right to live. Next, we have right to freedom. You see, the Constitution has given the right to freedom to every citizen. Under this right, a citizen has the right to freedom of speech and expression. Also, it has the right to form associations, the right to move freely and reside in any part of the country, and the right to practice any profession, occupation or business. Okay, so they are related. Also, the right to freedom includes the freedom of religion. So this means every citizen in India has the right to worship, practice and propagate his or her religion. In the eyes of law, all religions are equal and each one of us should pay respect to other religions. Now, along with this, there are some other very important rights as well, some of which we have talked about. Say, for example, the right to equality. This we have already talked about. That means, as per our constitution, all citizens will be equally protected by the laws of the country. So this means that all persons are equal before the law. The state cannot discriminate against a citizen on the basis of race, caste, sex, religion, or place of birth. The practice of untouchability has been abolished. You see, every citizen has access to all public places such as playgrounds, shops, hotels, etc. So all citizens also can apply for government jobs. Next, we have the right against exploitation. You see, poverty makes people helpless. The rich take advantage of the poor's helplessness, and the poor often are compelled to work without payment. This is called forced labor or beggar. So, the right against exploitation prohibits trafficking, forced labor, and the working of children who are under 14 years of age. Also, we have cultural and educational rights. Our constitution recognizes the right of each group of people to establish and maintain educational institutions of its own in order to preserve and develop their language and culture. And finally, we have the right to constitutional remedies. This gives authority to the citizens to move to the high courts and the supreme courts, that is judiciary, if they believe that any of their fundamental rights have been violated by the state. All these rights are binding upon every authority that has got the power to make laws. Our government of India has taken a number of steps to protect the human rights at both the national and the state levels. The most prominent among them is the formation of the National Human Rights Commission and the State Human Rights Commission. Let's first read about and learn about the National Human Rights Commission. You see, the formation of this commission is an important step in the direction of protecting human rights at the national level. The commission is constituted under the Human Rights Protection Law passed by the Parliament in 1993. The commission comprises of 5 members, including the chairman. A retired Chief Justice of Supreme Court will be the chairman of the commission. Now, what are the functions of the National Human Rights Commission? Well, first, to inquire about the complaints related to the violation of human rights. Next, visit jails to study the life of situations of the inmates and make recommendations. Also, this commission gives necessary instructions for the protection of human rights. And the commission also promote voluntary organizations that work for human rights. Now, let us talk about child rights. You see, right to education is an important right of children. The Right to Education Act of 2009, RTE Act basically, is passed by the Indian Parliament, highlights this. It ensures free and compulsory education to children in the age group of 6 to 14. Favorable learning environment and basic facilities are the right to children. However, despite these rights, this is also important to know that children are subject to various exploitations. See, for example, the children over here, they are doing manual labor. Here also, small kids doing work. Instead, they should be going to school and learning education. Now, several actions have been taken at the national or state levels for the protection of rights of the children. The most important among them is the formation of National Child Rights Commission and the state level commissions as well. Okay, so see some of the rights of the children. Children are saying, freedom of speech is my right. I have the right to my name and nationalism. Protection from child labor is my right. I have the right to education. Okay, fine. Now, let's talk about the rights of women. First, read this. Some of the headlines. All institutions must constitute women's cell for the protection of women's rights. This is from High Court. Next, Nirbhaya Kand. Legal action to ensure women's safety. Next, special waiting room for women in railway station. This we have seen. 50% reservation for women in local bodies of, say, Kerala. So these are some of the ways of ensuring that women are not being discriminated. So this means women should also get equal pay if they are working equally like that of a man. Equal status in social, economic and political spheres, equal opportunity to utilize scholarships and educational assistance. Now, equality with men in all respects is the right of women. For the protection of women's rights, the Women's Commission function at both national and state levels. Complaints related to the denial of women's rights and abuses against women can be submitted to the Commission. The Commission will probe into the issues and take appropriate action. Okay, so after talking about rights, next now talk about the other features of democracy, which is the protection of human rights. This we have also somewhat covered just now, but let me summarize them. Now, in a democracy, every citizen has certain basic rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution of India. The 6 fundamental rights guaranteed by the Constitution to its citizens are: right to equality, which means equality before law, that all persons are equal in the eyes of law; right to freedom, all citizens enjoy freedom of speech and expression to move freely from associations and reside in any part of country, also follow any religions. Then right against exploitation, that means this prohibits against forced labor, child labor and human trafficking. Next, right to freedom of religion. So all citizens are free to follow, propagate and profess any religion of their choice. Cultural and educational rights, they are free to conserve and develop their own culture. And right to constitutional remedies. If the fundamental rights of the citizen are violated, they can knock the doors of the court to get justice. Okay, fine. Now, just having rights doesn't mean that we don't have any duties as well. We do have them. Now I have given yet another distinction between the rights and the duties. Say for example, freedom is my right. So what is my duty? The associated duty is sharing my freedom with others. Next, as a child, protection is my right. So this means that to protect me is the duty of my parents. Next, child in old age, care in old age is the right of parents, and to give my parents due care in old age is my duty. Next, education and basic facilities for education is my right. So, to obey the rules of the school is my duty. Otherwise, I will never be able to get proper education. In the case of violation of my rights, I have the right to seek remedies, and the service of state and the society is my duty. Okay. Now, let me talk about equality and justice. Right to equality prohibits discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, gender, or place of birth. All citizens can access shops, hotels, parks, bathing ghats, or roads. The Constitution also prohibits untouchability and its practice in any form. To promote equality, there is provision that grants equality of opportunity in public employment to any office under the government. One important step for promoting equality is the midday meal scheme. The scheme is wonderful as it has increased the number of students' attendance in the classes and also ensures healthy diet for students so that they don't get malnutrition. Okay. So also, as the students are dining together, the old age system of caste discrimination is being wiped out. The Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act and the National Rural Health Mission are some of the other schemes promoted by the government to bridge the gap between various sections of the people. Okay, so in all we have learnt about 4 such schemes. Next, the separation of power. To ensure smooth governance, Most democracies provide for the separation of the three bodies of government: the legislature, executive, and the judiciary. Now, legislature is the law-making body of the country. Among the many functions of the legislature, the most important are making laws and presenting the budget. The parliament consists of president and the two houses, the lower house or Lok Sabha and the upper house or the Rajya Sabha. Now, executive is the executing body of the country. The executive executes and enforces law. This body is headed by the president and the permanent bureaucracy of the government, the IAS, IPS, and other officers, their departments as well. One executive consists of the president, the prime minister, and his or her council of ministers. Next, we have the judiciary, which takes care of the law made by the legislature. The role of this organ is to settle all disputes, apply the laws of the country, and punish the guilty. The Supreme Court in New Delhi is the highest court in India. The Chief Justice, who is appointed by the President of India, heads the Supreme Court. The High Court is the highest court in the state and consists, so after Supreme Court we have the High Court, which is in the state level highest authority, and it consists of the Chief Justice and other judges. Under each High Court there are a number of lower courts called the subordinate courts. The court of the district judge is the highest civil court in the district. The court of the session judge tries criminal cases. So we have the three bodies or organs of the government, and in fact there is another fourth organ, which is media. It also, its job is to try to understand the various laws and try to understand if the government is working properly, and to relay this entire message to the people so that people can understand how the government is working, and if they are not satisfied, then they can change the government in the next election. Now, merits of democratic government. Number 1, it respects the opinion of the people, protects the freedom of individuals, and rulers as well as the people are subject to the same law. And most importantly, rulers are indebted to the people. So, with this we have come to the end of this session. Let's do a quick recap. The word democracy comes from two Greek words, which means people's power. A person who has not been elected by the people but has obtained power forcibly is a dictatorial government. A king or a queen is the head of the state, and the ruling position is generally passed on to the ruler's heirs. If the fundamental rights of citizens are violated, they can knock the doors of the court to get justice. And judiciary takes care of the law made by legislature. The role of this organ is to settle all disputes, apply the laws of the country, and punish the guilty. Okay. If you have any questions, do write in the comment box.